And as you already know, our session is called Critical Engagement with Participatory Technology for Career Readiness. Now, I was at the moot court earlier attending the session, and I thought the speakers had a very good way to start their session, which was, in their words, to start with humility. And I think I want to do the same. There are a lot of big words here. And in many ways, while I'm facilitating the session, I don't have the answers. And so while, you know, how participatory democracy works, how participation works in the kind of setup that we have in this country, and especially with November coming up, I guess this was the topic for the whole Faculty Development Day. Participatory technology is probably an even newer, a more difficult concept for us to grasp, and especially for someone like us in our generation. And so, you know, we've used it, and we've used it a lot as consumers, but in many ways we haven't created as much or been creative with it. And so it's a process of learning. It's a process of constant becoming, so to speak. And the same with career readiness. I think the way that the term is used, just like student success or a lot of all those other terms that we keep using, but we don't really, in some ways, we need to critically engage with that term as professors, as people working within the academy. And so I think that, and since all of us are experienced people here, in some ways, the workshop will try to focus or try to understand, try to self-interrogate in many ways, the way we kind of use these and the way that these terms can kind of interact with each other. And so that's my purpose. In about an hour, there's only that much that we can do. But having said that, so that's what we're going to discuss today, hopefully. But I think since there are not that many people here, it would be great for us to introduce ourselves first, especially because one or two of us who are coming in with a different name. And so it would be helpful for us to know who we really are. And in many ways, I think that's kind of a good metaphor for today's session, because, you know, we can be who we want online, but we are not always in control. It's something else that can control our identity, right? So I'll start with myself. I'm Madhura Bandyopadhyay. I am a doctoral lecturer in the English department, specifically writing studies. I've been here since 2019, and some of you have seen me doing workshops on various topics. I teach first-year composition business writing, but also with a slight focus on technology. And so I guess I'll hand it over to somebody else if you want to introduce yourself. And do mention your name because of the confusion. New people coming in are coming in with a different name. And I think Yolanda, I don't know if she's here, but if you click on the three dots under the participants list, you can change your name, and you have to manually do it because the system is giving you a default name, Atharva Orpe, I think. So yes, if you have,
I just put a message in the chat for people to please change their name if they came in with that.
Okay, thank you. So would somebody else, I guess I'll just go with in the order that I can see people here. Sophia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sofia Borote. I am professor in public administration, and I'm very excited to begin a new semester. And I also notice I need to buy a light in my computer. Yeah.
Jill?
Hi, I'm Jill Gross-Pfeiffer. I'm a professor in the psychology department, and I've been at John Jay since 2007.
Okay. And then I guess Win is the next person on my screen.
Hi, I'm Lynn Ferdinand. I'm Director of General Education and Educational Partnerships staff, and I've been here since 2015.
And we have Julia.
Hi, my name is Julia. I'm in the Department of Security Fire Emergency Management, and I'm an assistant professor there since 2022.
Okay. And Shuyan, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, yes, yeah. I'm the my name is Suyan Chelekomidemi. I'm from the science department.
Okay. And Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon, and I'm from the Law and Police Science Department. I'm an assistant professor.
Okay. And we have Matloba. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Correctly. Hi, everyone. I am Matluba Khadjaeva. I am assistant professor in Math and Computer Science Department. I am at John Jay since 2018.
Okay, okay. And next I have Atharva, but I guess your name is something else.
It's so interesting. After someone retires, they change their name. Hi, I'm Nancy Velasquez Torres. I retire from full-time at John Jay. I am currently an adjunct, and I am in the Department of Counseling and Human Services.
Okay, okay. And then Robert? I'm not sure if Robert can hear me. Robert?
He left a message in the chat. His
okay.
mic doesn't work.
Oh, okay, I see, I see. And then Mickey just joined us. We are just introducing ourselves.
Hey, everybody. Mickey Melendez, Chair of the Counseling and Human Services Department. I've been at John Jay for 17, 18 years.
Wow, okay, okay. So hopefully you know a lot more about John Jay than I do. So great to have you here. So welcome everyone. And once again, so what I tried to do was, because there are so many different parameters in our title, interacting, critical engagement, participatory technology, and career readiness, I wanted to start by simply thinking about what we may mean by some of these things. And so what in your opinion is participatory technology? And what's special about it? What do you think participatory technology is that we are having to engage with in recent years? Yes, go ahead.
I would say Zoom, using AI technology over like in the classrooms. I know we had to use that. We had a pivot in 2020 from just asynchronous to live in-person classes.
Right. And I guess participation there means some kind of interactive, right? Other examples of participatory technology? Things that we may or may not use within an institutional setting, but they still exist. Google Form, yes. Mind map tools, yes. Polls, discussion boards, absolutely. And so so one of the things that we can think about is how does this change our use of technology that can be really important for society? What makes things different now? You know, and until the point that these things became so ubiquitous, how was the use of technology different, and how is it changing things now? Very simple questions, but it's a place to start.
We can have a meeting anytime we want. For example, if we wanted to make a research with somebody, we had to arrange time, room, where, and it was not that flexible. Right now, we have more flexibility anytime, whenever we have a slot in our schedule, and wherever it is, if we have computer or telephone to talk via Zoom or any other meeting spaces online.
Absolutely. So I think one implication of this is that a lot more people can participate now than they could because of this flexibility. And then I think Jill on the chat says that it's easier to collect information from a large group of people. And so this largeness is something that is different now, right? Like whether or not you're educated beyond a point, no matter who you are, you can contribute in a sense. And the co-construction of knowledge that Jill also talks about is a significant part of this. And this obviously relates to the participatory aspect of our term. And then Vin says less passive. So definitely if it's co-creation, then the user or the consumer is not just a passive consumer, but a co-creator of knowledge. And so at this point, I will share my screen for a second. I also had a list, but people had other things to say, happily. So participatory technology, because of this lack of passivity, because of this co-creation aspect, has been very instrumental in democratizing innovation. So the term was first used not in the realm of education, but more in kind of directly in fields of technology, in things like crowdsourcing, where everybody could have an input on the way that things were going, but also in determining policy, a kind of civic engagement. So all of the things that we think about when we think of the public sphere. It's also obviously useful in harnessing collective intelligence, and the largeness that somebody mentioned earlier was extremely useful in this. Now, obviously, to an extent, although we have to be really careful about this, breaking down barriers with inclusivity. But obviously, this comes with caveat. So obviously, people who can write in an intelligible way in English all over the world are largely represented, whereas huge sections of the human population are not. Also, the ease with which people have access. In the case of our students, not everybody has access to digital devices to the same extent, but still breaking down barriers with inclusivity is one of the things that has happened in recent years. And then real-world applications of participatory technology around the globe, and I'll talk about one example in a moment, but the ideal has been for participatory technology that it's designed for users, but also in many cases designed with users. So it evolves, something like Twitter, something like a lot of other things. I'll show you an example in a second. It's designed with users, and in some cases it's designed by users. So it's kind of not a top-down technology, but the ideal is that it moves from the bottom up. And so here's an example of a website that was actually created in India when I was talking about real-world applications. As you know, in many post-colonial countries, corruption is a real issue, especially corruption in governments, corruption in the bureaucratic systems. And this website actually, in many contexts, really changed the way that systems work. So it was called I Paid a Bribe. And this is a place where people could upload whether videos or text-based stories. You could tell your story about a situation where you had to pay a bribe. Then there was an analysis part where the story was analyzed. And that actually led to a lot of change in processes. And this was like a way in which people together in a crowdsourced way were trying to tackle corruption. And so a kind of participatory technology that led to real world changes. So this is kind of a concept of what participatory technology is doing. I mean, we can be negative about it. We know that still large corporations like Google, Microsoft, et cetera, still control things in a large way. Facebook, there are so many antitrust lawsuits in Europe, in other places that they face because of many ways that they control algorithms. But still, this is the way that participatory technology works. For our purposes, within an educational institution, we've often used participatory technology, and many of you talked about some of this, but I still made a list here. You know, in the classroom, some of us use wikis, which is like, it's like a space where students can come together to pool in their research or anything else about a subject matter. So it's not determined by any one person, but it's a collective engagement issue. This is also especially important in schools like ours, where students often don't have a voice, and they get to determine the direction of the progress of knowledge. Social media pages, obviously, things like LinkedIn, which is also interactive, although it's a profile of a student, but it's not just the one moment in which a student creates a profile, right? They have the option to build networks for a long period of time. They have the option of sharing links and other things that they may be interested in for a while, and hence collect followers, collect likes, things like that. And I'll come to generative AI in a second, but a lot of us do electronic portfolios, which can also be interactive depending on how you use it. Professional or author-based websites, another example, which can also be interactive, but you know, it's also the idea that the student interacts with the technology to create something. So not all of these are primarily interactive. And then online surveys and feedback systems, as somebody mentioned, Google Forms. With generative AI, that's a whole huge area on which we could have several workshops. You know, hopefully we'll touch on it a little bit, but that generative AI like ChatGPT is interactive. It talks back to you depending on how you talk to it, right? And so that's is another kind of participatory technology, and we're just starting to learn how we start using it. And so this is a few things that we can start with about participatory technologies. But now I want to move on to the other term that I promised to talk about before we move on to thinking about how these two things can be related. Now, in the meantime, we have some things on chat. Let me just check once. Okay. Collaborative annotation of text. Yes. Again, a very, very important reading practice, interpretation practice, things like that. So let's leave participatory technology for a second, and let's talk about career readiness, because in a lot of places on flyers, on workshop titles, on symposiums, whatever else you think about, everybody's talking about career readiness and student success, right? But what does it mean, especially in the context of higher education? And many of you are experienced professors here, way more experienced than I am. And so what do you think career readiness means? Yes, Sharon?
I would say, you know, teaching your students how to learn, use different platforms of technology like Microsoft Office, learning how to use Excel spreadsheets, learning how to write a memo. So I know these things are important depending just, you know, what type of job they're going to get, but learning how to, you know, how to write in legal documents. So putting students in places where as soon as they get out, you know, they can use skills that they already learned.
Okay, and this is definitely important. One aspect of career readiness is to kind of learn certain skills that may give them an edge in the job market. And the examples you gave were some technology platforms maybe, and some genres of professional communication, right? Like you mentioned the memo. Anything else, any other way you want to tackle this term? And Jill, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think for me, it's making very explicit the skills that they're learning in our classrooms so that they can articulate how those skills will prepare them for various careers and having opportunities to explore different careers.
Absolutely. So can you give us an example, maybe from something that you teach? Because this is a very difficult thing for us to articulate as professors, because often what career readiness is interpreted as is a very simple way of, like I am in the English department. It's like, oh, I can write a business letter. But is it just that, or is it something more than that that we teach students within higher education?
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I think we have to, if we're transparent about what employers are looking for in college graduates, and then I think it's also often a way to motivate students, right? So we're doing group work. Why are we doing group work? Because employers really value people who are able to work with others from diverse groups and leadership skills and so on. So I think putting a greater emphasis on process and skill development in our classes is really important, which is not what we're necessarily trained to do, but just thinking a little bit more carefully about the kinds of skills that are going to be valued once students graduate as important for them to make the connection too. So I think in our psych major, we do have basic skills that employers value, but students don't necessarily see that connection. So making sure that they're reflecting on those skills and the development of those skills, so that they know that they have them and it makes them more marketable.
Absolutely. So on the one hand, there are skills that are directly very visible in the job market. Something like, you know how to use a software program. But on the other hand, there are these skills that students actually learn in their courses or just by being here in college that they don't know how to articulate on a document like a resume, but also in general when they introspect about themselves. So that's really important. Sophia?
I'm thinking also, I would like to add 21st century skills like communication skills, critical thinking skills that are also part of the career readiness. And in my class, I do exercises about that. And I also combine that with how to create the vision, and how to do the linked profiles, for example. That I use a lot of exercise in my class.
Absolutely. And so what I did, and all of you have kind of articulated the things that I have here, but I'll still share my screen, and I put the NACE career competency document in here, but I'll still share my screen and just check this out. So this is what the National Association of Colleges and Employers have come up with as competencies for a career-ready workforce. And this document is easily available if you just Google search it. And I don't want to read through all these aspects, but all I want to say is it's not a simple, being in higher education, we should not just read this as at face value. Career and self-development, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, critical thinking for us is a complex issue. But the other ones, if you read through their description later, are also they're handled in a complex way. So if a student is coming to college, they're going to hopefully graduate with these skills in a deeper way than just, something that they would probably learn in a trade school. So career and self-development, for example, doesn't just necessarily mean that you learn some skills on the surface, but you learn to introspect, you learn to see exactly the skills that you may have, and we can guide them through processes through which they can integrate themselves and come up with those skills. But also it's a question of development over a few years, over a period of a few months. For example, if they create a LinkedIn profile, it's not just a matter of doing it in a day, but developing that network over a period of time. Similarly, with various other critical thinking, of course, like it's about making decisions, solving problems, using inclusive reasoning and judgment. And so, equity and inclusion, as you can see, solicit feedback from multiple cultural perspectives. So it's not just about, everybody should get the same chance when they apply for a job, but when you have the job, for example, if your job is to create a website, you have to make sure that the language on the website is accessible to global populations who may or may not have the same skills in and access to the English language, for example. So, you can read through this, but I'm not, I put it on chat. But what I'm saying is that if you're going for higher education, you have to think of these in a deeper, more complex way. And that's what probably our students get when they come to college. Now, what I want us to do now, since we don't have infinite time, what I tried to do was to have something concrete for us where we can look at a few of our real students and then try to think about how this, ideally, how the students are presenting themselves. And these are electronic portfolios. And, in a holistic way, can you see, and I'll put this on chat. You may have to sign into Digication. I'll put this on chat. Try to go onto this website, and you may have to sign in using your John Jay email and password, and you'll come up with a list of our students' professional portfolios, or at least what they call their professional portfolios. Some of them were probably created in response to some kind of class assignment. Some were created on the students' own initiatives. I just want you to browse through some of these portfolios. Particularly, there's a student called Umema Ali. None of these are my students. Umema has also links to her LinkedIn profile. And there's somebody called Joshua Hall. But you can click through any of these profiles. And then what I want you to think about, and I'm putting these questions on the chat as well. Just give me a second while I just copy the questions. And I'm putting the questions I had there on chat. So I'll just send you into a breakout room, maybe in pairs, but just browse through these as something concrete, but you don't have to just stick to these. But what can you see here that may relate to some of the NACE competencies? Now, not all of these profiles are comprehensive. They may have been created in response to different situations. But do you see any of these communication skills, critical skills, the students are trying to present themselves in a professional way? Now, what would you like to see better represented here? I'm sure all of you will, will think that this could have been done better. But these are already things that are displayed on our John Jay, one of the kind of important websites associated with us. And so, maybe we should all participate in helping our students make professional profiles. And so if you would like to see some things better represented here, then, think of the basic tenets of an assignment with your partners that might help students use such participatory technology with deeper engagement. Now, I wish I could find LinkedIn profiles or other kinds of Facebook professional profiles students have, but I couldn't, so I use these. But I'm sure you can understand the basic driver of my questions. And can you share an experience when you used a participatory technology in class? What were your goals? So firstly, could people get into the Digication site? Okay, anyone here who couldn't? Okay, so the link is again, it's on the chat. The questions are also on chat. And if you scroll up a little bit, you'll see the NACE Career Ready competencies. And so it's 11:53, so maybe I'll let you chat for 10 minutes. I'll send you into the breakout rooms. You can, obviously it's like a prompt. You can take up any of the questions or none of the questions, but talk about something else. But basically, what is your comment on our students trying to use participatory technology? How can we improve? How can we maybe give them clear directions, which is the assignment part of my questions, to help them or guide them present themselves better on these kinds of participatory technology platforms? Okay, so I guess I'll send you into the breakout rooms. Is that okay? Okay.
Nancy, are you still with us? Looks like she hasn't joined. Okay, she joined. All right. This is really interesting stuff. I've never done e-portfolios with my students, and but I thought you had to take like a training or something in that first before you started.
That's true, but it's pretty user-friendly. So once you go in, I mean, I learned myself, although I have workshops for my students that the e-portfolio people hold.
Okay.
So it's not that difficult.
Mm. I actually clicked through some of the stuff that you put there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, someone else is coming back in.
Oh, maybe I could try to send the person to a room, but it's all gray. The name is all gray.
Hello.
Hi, Robert again. I'm switching to my laptop so I can have sound. Can you put me back in room 1? Sorry.
Yolanda, do you think you can
No, my name is Robert, but
Fine.
my
Oh,
name again. It just
no, I
is.
know. I'm asking Yolanda if she can send you to room 1.
Oh, got you. Sorry.
Trying to do that now. Did it? Okay. Let me see. Move to room 1. Yep. He should be there. Let's see.
Great.
Yeah, he should be there. Yep, he's in there.
Great.
Breakout rooms, okay. So I was actually going through some of the samples you posted. They look pretty interesting. I mean, it's amazing, right? The advances.
Right. Our students actually, a lot of our students know how to do many things that we don't often address in our classes. So yeah, they're very creative if you give them the opportunity.
I know. I always tell my students that they need to teach me stuff. I'm like, listen,
Right.
I said, I have you here at the college and I have my teenagers at home to help me because
Yeah. The teenagers know a lot more than us often. They just need the guidance of experience that we have, I hope.
yes. So I tell them, I said, listen, I'm not very tech savvy, so I'm like happy that I can know I now have Google Drive and I know how to use it.
Right.
And that was because I once lost my PowerPoints, and had I had it on Google Drive, I wouldn't have lost them, right?
Yeah, that's why I have them on Google Drive always now.
Oh yeah, I learned my lesson, and I had a student taught me how to do it. Go figure. But I mean, it's a good teaching point, talking point with the students too, right? Because I'm like, listen, it's reciprocal. Learning is reciprocal, you know?
Right. Right.
So
Absolutely. So that is what, in a way, the session is about, like participating, interacting. Let me go and try to join a room and see what's happening. Well, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I think we are all back here. And so hopefully people were able to talk, and hopefully my questions were kind of broad enough for everybody to contribute in whatever way they would like, because everybody is experienced here. And so, if you could, would you please share what you talked about? And one reason is, of course, to have the discussion. The other reason is we know that Zoom only records the main room. So it was only recording me sitting here by myself. It didn't record any of your other conversations. And so it would be nice to have it in here. So anybody would like to start us off? What did you talk about? And just to recap, as experienced teachers, I wanted you to share, if you could, any experience that you might have had with teaching with participatory tech, any strengths or weaknesses you may have seen in the portfolios that we looked at, any suggestions about like specific directions, namely maybe assignments or anything else, or other directions that you could use to guide our students towards better use of these technologies. So anyone would like to start?
I mean, I'll just put a question out there. I don't know if we really talked about this, but what do we know about how participatory technologies are used in the industry students wish to enter? And how could we introduce those like authentic uses of the technology in the classroom?
That's a great point. And just to kind of talk about something that I learned from a workshop that I attended in the spring of this year. This was about like students who go into communication fields. And so these days, apparently, especially students, especially people who are in junior positions, they have to write a lot of like letters and things like that, but also interview a lot of people. And often, apparently, most junior employees are using ChatGPT to generate interview questions, for example, generate like templates for business letters, for example. Now, one way that many of us instructors have tried to handle ChatGPT in our classes has been to either prevent the use of that, or we don't quite know how to teach with it. But apparently, obviously, employees who come with the knowledge of how to use ChatGPT productively to work faster, and then, kind of tweak those things in a way that doesn't make the questions for interviews, for example, really bland or really aimless. They are the people who will move forward. So that's one thing that I learned about like participatory technology, is that we need to teach our students, especially students from kind of marginalized backgrounds who may not be in an environment where this is very naturally they're being exposed to this. We need to address this in some way. And so, yes, and then I think Jill says in the chat, we definitely need to help students learn about AI. I agree. So yes, we also need to educate ourselves about how these technologies are being used in the industry. Any other comments?
I'd just say our group was really impressed with the portfolios. We thought they were really showcased the students' personalities as well as their skills. And we liked the fact that they were showcasing their tech skills, their writing skills, how the various awards that they'd won, that, so what they'd done in an extracurricular way. We just thought they were very, very nice. One thought, and I'm not sure that it's a good thought, but one thing that I wondered about was whether or not having an assignment where you had the NACE competencies and asked students to be really explicit about what they had done that really tapped into that might be a way for employers to navigate the portfolios in a slightly different way. Though I actually quite like the individualized nature of how they look right now.
I think that's a great point, Jill. And in many ways, because I teach a lot of freshman composition, one of the requirements in our freshman writing class is that they create a portfolio. And so, you know, if in the first year they kind of learn how to work with this technology, they have 3 more years to either perfect it. In some ways, if they've learned enough, then they can even reject Digication, which is the platform this is done on, which can also in many ways be restrictive. There are other platforms that are better out there, but basically if we give them the basic skills that they can unlearn even to move on to something else, and then you're absolutely right to expose them to these NACE competencies, to the fact that they can make explicit things that they already know, and learn how to present that on a forum or on a platform. The thing about higher education is that it teaches people flexibility. So today they're presenting it as a website. Tomorrow, if they need to present themselves on a LinkedIn profile, maybe 3 years from now, if nobody is using LinkedIn anymore and it's some other thing that emerges, they should be able to transfer those skills, right? So that's what we should be teaching, unlike like a lot of these for-profit schools out there who are like teaching this in a rote fashion. And so I think that's really important. Anyone else wants to share something that they talked about? Anyone else had comments on the profiles? Yes, Sharon.
Yeah, so we I was with Demi and Sophia, so we talked about several things. One, Demi brought up a good point in terms of post-pandemic, the communication skills, because we've kind of been zoomed out, out of touch with learning, and we had to kind of pivot to a different type of learning. And being able to engage with people, it's important to go back. We also talked about in terms of adult learners, going back to school. I was one of those who graduated with my PhD in 2020, right? And at 45, it's different technology, different ways of doing research. So I think that that's important, when we teach it in the classroom, is are we including adult learners on how to use this technology? Now AI has kind of boomed, right? I think after 2020, 2022, that's also a technology, and is it allowable for research, or to what extent can we use this AI technology without it compromising the data? So I think that that's something that I think about, because I didn't have that issue when I was going to school. AI wasn't something that, hey, we could Google and find things. Everything was hardcore. You had to go to a library. You had to use things. So how do you really vet that the information you're getting is accurate, right? So they have to have some knowledge, I think, to kind of say, well, I know this is true and I know this isn't, right? So I think that that's important. And if we're going to use this technology, you still have to have somewhat the basic foundation of what's truth of not, and then vet the information. So we discussed that. And in terms of the portfolio of the students, they were all great. They all had a different take about what they wanted to brand themselves. So I think that that was good for the students. I like that diversity.
Absolutely. And I think, like you mentioned this idea implicitly towards the end about the idea of choice, that they have a choice about how they want to present themselves. Sometimes it's not easy for, yes, I love that branding concept, Jill says, but that it is a choice, that they don't have to present themselves according to a formula. But the other things that you mentioned, like reading, writing skills, have gone down since the COVID years. But often with my students, I realize that students are used to these kinds of participatory technologies. They're more excited about working with these to express their creativity. And so while we still need to teach sentence structure and paragraph and all of that, but if you do it in this kind of forum, often their engagement is better. And And for even adult learners coming back to school, this can be a way for them to engage again, like back with this, something that they're doing after a long time. But the idea of kind of disinformation that you mentioned, I think it's very interesting because we can teach students, that there's fake news out there, don't believe it. But one way to really, for them to critically engage with it is to make them create, right, themselves something. And I'm not talking about e-portfolios, if they're creating a Facebook page or if they're creating a crowdsourced kind of wiki page, they know that, what is information, what is disinformation, and we can teach them that on those forums. So, very important points. Anybody else? One last comment, otherwise I'd like to show you something. Okay, so I'll show you something. I'll share my screen. So I think today in the fall of 2024, it's impossible to talk about participatory technology or any kind of technology without talking a little bit about AI. And we have 4 minutes left. So I'm not, we need like several workshops on AI. But I just wanted to share with you an article that I found, which is less than a year old, which is really talking about how people, one thing which may not be intuitively obvious to us is that all students are using AI for all kinds of things, ChatGPT. And one of the ways that they're using AI is to apply for jobs, create the material for jobs that they're going to submit. And this article is about why using AI in a kind of non-critical way is not a good idea. And so, yes, I'll just share this article with you. And hopefully you can see it on my screen. It's on the NACE website. And it says how students should not use generative AI in the job market. And again, we should not just take it at face value. They are, in my opinion, they should use it, but use it very carefully. And you can see that it's on the NACE website. If you'd like to read it, just Google search it. But they should know that creating all their material through AI can lead to a lack of personalization if everybody else is doing it. And so they need to customize whatever they create very, very carefully. Loss of personal voice, same thing, but also experiencing bias. So, the generative AI is still suffers from biases simply because of the lack of representative databases that they have. And so if they're completely borrowing from ChatGPT, for example, they will have that bias in the way that they do their applications. Not everything is online. Not everything is, attainable through these AI generative tools. And so they'll be missing opportunities if they stop looking around by themselves. And so missing updates about industry trends, same thing. Ignoring privacy and data security concerns. So these are, if they're uploading their resume to ChatGPT, trying to see what ChatGPT is going to spew back to them, they might be revealing important information like their phone numbers to parties that, maybe to the dark web or something that they may not be aware of. So losing out on personal development. And this is very important because like if somebody stays on LinkedIn for a really long period of time, that's a creative kind of development of creating a network. But this kind of very quick and easy solution is not something that they should be aiming for, something that maybe we should try to teach them. Relying on AI to make important career decisions, believe it or not, many of our students are not empowered in that sense because they don't have family members guiding them. They don't come from backgrounds where it's very, very easy. So for them to get this kind of information, so ChatGPT should not be the direction in which they go for that kind of guidance. So having said that, it's 12:20. Any last comments? Otherwise, I'll let you go to the moot court for the next session. I'm going there myself. Hope to see some of you. And if not, feel free to email me if you have ideas. And thanks for participating, everybody. Yes. Bye then. Thank you.